This is AEDT 2150U, Digital Technologies and Advanced Teaching Methods. And this is the second of the 3 video capsules that we will be using to discuss assessment and evaluation and advanced teaching methods. In this video capsule, we'll examine the principles and instruments that we use to assess and evaluate learners and learning programs. For this, we will take the rubric that we are using in our course to assess and evaluate your projects as a concrete example of an assessment and evaluation instrument. We will examine how this rubric can be implemented to first provide you with a formative assessment of your work and second to give you a summative evaluation of your final project. We will also look at Kirkpatrick's model, which is widely used to assess and evaluate learning programs and education technologies. While watching this video, we will reflect on the following analysis questions. What is the difference between assessing and evaluating learners and assessing and evaluating learning programs? How do formative and summative evaluations differ? What are the underlying principles required to create assessment and evaluation instruments to encourage learning? And what are examples of assessment and evaluation instruments that teachers can use with their students? Whether assessing and evaluating learners or learning programs, there are 2 kinds of evaluations that are used by teachers and instructional designers: formative assessment and summative evaluation, as we discussed in the previous video. Let us redefine them before going to our concrete example. When a chef tastes the soup, that's formative assessment. But when the customer tastes it, that's summative evaluation. This is a famous quote by David Hopkins, Professor Emeritus at the Institute of Education, University of London, which clearly illustrates the difference between the 2 kinds of evaluation. When a chef tastes the soup in the kitchen, he does so in order to see if it's well prepared, if the ingredients are well cooked, if it needs any modifications to make it perfect. Whereas when the customer tastes the soup, it is to give a final evaluation. Yes, it's good, I'll eat it, or it's bad, I won't order it again. When we formally assess students, our target is to assess their work and output in order to give them formative feedback that would help them improve their future performances. Whereas when we formatively assess a learning program, we judge the instructional material and activities that it contains in order to improve its content and the likelihood of student success. In this case, formative assessment can be performed during the construction of the educational material, during the implementation of the material, or as a revision process after the program has been used for a period of time. Similarly, there is a difference between creating summative evaluation instruments for students' performance and summative evaluation instruments to measure the efficacy of a learning program. Let us now look at a concrete example from our course of an assessment instrument that can be used for both formative assessment and summative evaluation. Here is the rubric used to evaluate your work in this course. Before going further, let us start by defining rubrics. As per Rubric for Higher Education, a rubric is a scoring guide composed of criteria used to evaluate performance, a product, or a project. It is used as a student-centered approach to assessment. A rubric allows for standardized evaluation according to specified criteria, making grading and ranking simpler and more transparent in a reliable, fair, and valid manner at several levels. When used as a formative assessment instrument, rubrics can help students understand the objectives of their learning and inform them on how to revise and improve their work. There are 2 kinds of rubrics: analytic rubrics and holistic rubrics. Analytic rubrics are more detailed because they assess every component of a finished work, whereas holistic rubrics assess the work as a whole. We create rubrics based on competencies. Note that a competency is the ability of identifying knowledge and skills and mobilizing them to perform a task or to solve a problem. The rubric used in our course is analytic one. As per Wikipedia, rubrics include 1 or more dimensions on which performance is rated, definitions and examples that illustrate the attributes being measured, and a rating scale for each dimension. Dimensions are generally referred to as criteria, the rating scale as levels, and definitions as descriptors. In our course, your work will be assessed and evaluated based on 6 criteria. The first criterion in the rubric is the relevance of elements of your work to the learning outcome. For example, if we take the first assignment, which is collective concept definitions, the learning outcomes would be your persevered engagement in an online learning environment, the efficacy of the strategies you develop to collaborate synchronously and asynchronously, in addition to acquiring the basic knowledge of concepts regarding contemporary models of teaching in adult learning settings. The second criterion is rigor. In the case of the collective concept definitions assignment, rigor means to which extent do your work respect the guidelines, the conditions, and the criteria outlined in the course regarding the realization of this assignment. The third criterion is depth, or the quality of the references you use to support your ideas and position regarding concepts discussed in the course. When citing references, APA conventions should be respected. The fourth dimension is breadth, which assesses and evaluates to which extent your work covers the different aspects of the competencies and learning outcomes of the assignment. The fifth criterion focuses on precision, or how accurate you used in your work the terms, concepts, and principles discussed during the course. The last criterion is coherence, which examines your work in general and assesses whether all its components are well structured and linked to each other. In addition to the criteria, the rubric displays the specific performance characteristics in levels or scales and describes the degree to which a standard has been met. These levels are associated with letter grades. As you have noticed, in order to have an A in any of the assignments, your work should be excellent and even outstanding. It has to reflect exemplary high relevance to the competencies being developed and to the learning outcomes. It has to respect all of the guidelines, conditions, and criteria outlined in the course with respect to the application of the models and theories of digital technologies and advanced teaching methods. It has to show a deep analysis, understanding, and integration of relevant and high-quality references and respects APA conventions, and so on. If for a specific assignment, for example, your work was just as adequate in regards to its depth, which is described as personal position reflects a somewhat deep analysis with appropriate use of relevant references, APA conventions are somewhat respected, then you will have to go back and examine the references you used, maybe search for more pertinent references, and make sure that you review the APA conventions and apply them correctly in your citations and references. Looking at the rubric will help you understand the expectation your teachers have regarding the quality of your work. It will help you situate your work and know exactly which are the areas you can and should improve. In this course, this rubric will be used as a formative assessment tool throughout the semester to guide you in your work. At the end of the semester, this rubric will be used as a summative evaluation tool to evaluate your final work, to which a final letter grade will be associated. Other instruments used to assess and evaluate students' work can be true or false questions, multiple choice questions, multiple answers, open-ended, association questions, sequencing, essay questions, application simulation questions, case studies, problem-solving activities, synthesis creative questions, recognition questions, presentations, self-assessments, projects, portfolios, and other. In order for us to understand the difference between evaluating learners and evaluating learning programs, let us now examine a model that is widely used to evaluate the effectiveness of learning and training programs, which is the Kirkpatrick model. This model was created by Donald Kirkpatrick, a professor emeritus at the University of Wisconsin. Kirkpatrick identifies 4 levels of evaluation. The first level evaluates learners' or participants' reaction. In other words, the first level evaluates to what degree learners or participants react favorably to the training. Reaction can evaluate teachers' performance, content relevance, usability of the material, and quality of the learning environment. It can be a simple happy faces or a survey or questionnaire during and after the course using the Likert scale. The reaction level focuses on the delivery aspects and focuses on students' perception. Let us take an example to better illustrate this level. Let us suppose that we have created an online course on how teachers can use social media in their classrooms. At the end of the course, we can ask participants to complete an online survey or questionnaire to let us know whether this online course met their expectations and if they feel that they have learned what they were supposed to learn. We can present a number of statements and ask the participants to rate them using a Likert scale that goes from agree, slightly agree to disagree. Here are some examples of such statements. I find the social media concepts covered in this course relevant to the projects I'm planning to work on with my students. I find the suggested strategies applicable to my students. The online glossary was helpful. The downloadable material is useful to my understanding of the concepts. The use of videos is informative. The embedded scaffolding and probing questions assisted me in constructing my learning. I find the interactivity essential to better understand this course. The second level of the Kirkpatrick model evaluates learning. In other words, the second level evaluates to what degree learners acquire intended knowledge, skills, and attitudes based on their participation in the learning program. Level 2 measures the increase of knowledge and is usually quantifiable. Different levels of knowledge can be tested. Recalling Bloom's taxonomy, evaluations should include rote knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, question, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Going back to our example, we can ask questions such as define social media. Give 3 examples of social media that can be used in the classroom. What are the affordances of social media? What are the risks in using social media with our students? Etc. The third level of the Kirkpatrick model evaluates behavior or transfer of learning, which is to what degree participants apply what they have learned during the learning event. In other words, it evaluates the transfer of learning to real situations where learners have to use the knowledge they acquired to solve real situation problems. Going back to our example, we can, for example, ask teachers to provide us with their lesson plans for a semester and see if they include social media. We can also go observe teachers and assess how they are implementing social media in their classrooms. Finally, the fourth level of the model evaluates results. That is also referred to as return on investment. In other words, it evaluates the effect of implementing the learning program on the organization, whether it is a school, university, or other. Going back to our example, we can measure, for example, if and how the students' use of social media as learning tool affects student retention and saves money. Learning programs are also formatively assessed before they are implemented in their education settings. Instruments such as surveys, questionnaires, pilot testing, focus groups, and interviews can provide information regarding the potential of the learning program and its area of improvement. There is also a need to conduct an expert review to verify that the accuracy of technical content and an editorial review to ensure the quality of the language. Synthesis questions. In your opinion, in addition to formative evaluations given by the teachers, how can students benefit from formative evaluations provided by their peers? How efficient can a peer evaluation be, and why? How do strategies adopted to evaluate learners and the strategies used to evaluate learning programs differ, and what do they have in common? In your opinion, who should provide formative evaluations to learning programs?